Hello and welcome to the CDFA RFSI AmpliFund Budget Overview. This presentation will go over a sample budget on a line-by-line basis. Note that this presentation is more catered to infrastructure grant applicants. Applicants to the equipment-only grant option can skip ahead to the middle of the presentation, Special Purpose Equipment, as this is the only cost category allowable for equipment-only grants. This presentation will focus exclusively on the budget section of the AmpliFund application. Other presentations are available on the CDFA RFSI website that go over the AmpliFund application more generally. The application is organized into several sections, each being represented with a circle at the top of the page. As each page is completed, the circle will be filled in with a check mark. Again, we will be focusing only on the budget section today. All sections marked with an asterisk are required. At the bottom and top of the page are buttons to save and to continue to the next section of the application. Clicking on the budget circle, an applicant will land on this page. The screenshot to the left is a budget that hasn't been started. On the budget page, create line items for any of the 9 budget categories by hitting the plus sign next to the category name. The grant funding and non-grant funding totals must match the amounts requested on the project information page. Equipment-only grants do not require matching or non-grant funds. After hitting the plus sign, applicants will see this blank page for each line item. The item type is either personnel or non-personnel. Ignore the direct cost calculation choice. In name, enter a basic description of the cost. Direct cost is the total amount of the expense. Non-grant funded should be yes if the applicant will fund all or part of the cost with matching funds. Enter a dollar amount or percentage in the cash match or in-kind match box. The remaining figures will autofill. In the narrative box, include a description of the expense. This is the description column from the instructions. This slide has some basic information regarding the sample budget. This sample budget is for an infrastructure grant which is subject to a 50% matching fund requirement. This does not represent a complete budget, but an example of one cost per category. The example applicant wants to demolish an existing cold storage unit and replace it with a new and modernized unit. Not all expenses will be grant funded. The applicant wants to use an in-kind match for 100% of the employee and fringe benefit expenses. This means that some of the individual expense categories will have a percentage split other than 50-50. The following slides will show details of each expense category shown to the left. The first expense listed is personnel. This expense is an estimate of the total cost of salary or wages for time spent on the project by employees of the applicant organization. In item type, choose personnel. In this sample budget, an employee will manage the grant and is listed as program manager. The total estimated expense for the program manager is $50,000, which is entered into direct cost. The applicant is providing all the employee salary as matching funds, so $50,000 is entered into in-kind match. The grant funded box will autofill. In narrative, enter relevant details such as percent FTE or hours worked, basic tasks, etc. Note that the salary cost has been adjusted to account for 2.5 years of work at 20% FTE. This number is not the program manager's annual salary, which is $100,000 per year. Also, the narrative description mentions that 1 month of these costs will be pre-grant costs. Pre-grant costs, including those paid with matching funds, must be included in the budget for CDFA approval. The next line item is fringe benefits. Fringe benefits are non-monetary compensation that companies give their employees, such as health care, insurance, paid time off, etc. In item type, choose personnel. In this example, the employee's fringe benefits are calculated using a 40% rate. Total fringe benefit costs are estimated at $20,000. The applicant is paying 100% of the fringe benefits as an in-kind match. The narrative explains what fringe benefits are offered and the percentage rate used. Note that fringe benefit rates for federal grants should not exceed those used for employees working on other projects. That is, applicants should use their actual fringe benefit rate. The next category is travel. Travel expenses should be estimated over the course of the project for all individuals except contractual personnel. In item type, choose non-personnel. In this example, mileage costs are estimated using 500 miles multiplied by the IRS mileage rate of 67 cents per mile. The applicant will fund 50% of the cost and the grant will provide the remaining 50%. In the narrative section, the applicant explains the type of travel and defines how the travel will support the project's goals. Special purpose equipment is the next line item. Special purpose equipment is used only for technical activities. Activities that strengthen middle of the supply chain resiliency shall be considered allowable technical activities in defining special purpose equipment for the purpose of RFSI. Refer to the request for proposals for the difference between special purpose equipment and general purpose equipment, which may not be purchased but may be rented. In this sample budget, the cold storage refrigeration unit costs $235,000. The applicant will provide $92,500 and the grant will fund $142,500. In the narrative section, provide a thorough description of the equipment and how it will be used. Note that the applicant is uploading a catalog to document the price of the requested equipment. For equipment-only grants, remember that only one piece of special purpose equipment, along with any related accessories, tax, delivery fees, etc., may be requested. The next expense category is supplies. In supplies, list the materials, supplies, and fabricated parts costing less than $5,000 per unit. Items costing more than $5,000 per unit should be listed in special purpose equipment. The estimated supplies in the sample budget consist of 680 widgets priced at $9.52 per unit. The applicant will cash match 50% of the cost of the widgets. In the narrative box, describe how the supplies will support the purpose and goal of the proposal. Construction is the next expense category. On the construction page, estimate the total cost of construction necessary to the project. In the sample budget, the applicant is budgeting for demolition and removal of an existing cold storage unit. ABC Contractors has provided a written quote for $67,000. The applicant will cash match 50% of the cost and the grant will fund the remainder. In the narrative field, describe costs including administrative and legal expenses, structures, relocation expenses and payments, architectural and engineering fees, project inspection fees, site work, demolition and removal, construction, and miscellaneous expenses related to modernizing or expanding a new or existing facility. Describe the need for construction costs. Note that the applicant will upload the quote here to document this cost. Contractual expenses are the next expense category. Estimate the total cost of work on the project that will be performed by individuals or organizations other than the applicant. For example, consultants, contractors, partner organizations, etc. In the example, translation services are needed to translate signage in the hub. The applicant will fund 50% of the cost, as will the grant. In narrative, provide a list of contractors detailing the name and the fee structure. Also include a list of the project activities and a justification for why contractual or consultant services are needed. For contractual costs greater than $10,000, provide a breakdown of costs requested. Next is the other category. Estimate the total cost of all other project-related expenses. Include any expense not covered in any of the previous budget categories. In this case, a subscription fee to a data collection and analysis firm is necessary. Half the cost will be funded by the applicant, and the remaining half will be funded by the grant. In narrative, describe the purpose of each item listed and how it is needed for the completion of the project. Note that the maximum grant duration is 2 years, 5 months, or 2.417 years for prorating subscriptions and other annual costs. The final expense category is indirect costs. Indirect costs are any costs that are incurred that cannot be readily identified with an individual's grant activities. Examples of such costs are facilities operation and maintenance costs, depreciation, administrative expenses, etc. If an applicant has a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement, NICRA, the applicant is required to use this amount, and a copy of the NICRA must be submitted with the application. Otherwise, applicants may elect to charge a rate of 10% of modified total direct costs, MTDC. Refer to the request for proposal for more details on MTDC. Our complete sample budget is shown to the left. Remember, the grant funding, cash match, and in-kind totals must match the amounts requested on the project information page. The total overall budget cost must equal 0, reflecting that total project expenses and total project funding are equal. As you prepare your budget, here are a few tips to consider. All requested costs must be allowable. Projects with substantial unallowable costs may be disqualified. Infrastructure grant applicants should refer to the allowable and unallowable costs and activities table in the RFP. Equipment-only grant applicants may request one piece of special purpose equipment only, along with any associated accessories, tax, delivery or installation fees, etc. Costs to upgrade a facility are not allowable under equipment-only grants. Costs should be justified and linked to project activity. Estimates should be reasonable and realistic. And as a friendly reminder, provide sufficient detail, double check the budget totals, and don't procrastinate. Get started early. CDFA is available via email to answer questions at grants@cdfa.ca.gov. This concludes the RFSI AmpliFund budget presentation.